So the next time you're on your 8th glass of red wine, bobbing your head to the music playing in the background, and taking selfies of your new Neuroselling watch, consider all the workings of the ventromedial prefrontal cortex that led you here. How rational do you think you are? If you're anything like me, you probably think you're a data scientist who is hyperlogical and constantly deploys a process of analyzing detailed information to act reasonably and make sound decisions, right? Then you wake up on a Sunday morning after a night of downing Jaeger bombs, feeling nauseous, with your head pounding, wondering where on earth you left your rationality. My favorite is the story we keep telling ourselves about how frugal we're going to be with our finances and how disciplined we're going to be with our budgets, and all it takes is just one shelf life sneaker sale popping up on our Instagram feed for us to make illogical impulse purchases. The reality is we are largely irrational people. Studies estimate that the average adult makes 35,000 decisions each day, with 85% of those decisions following no logical process flow of thoroughly surveying options to come up with the most reasonable choice of action. In other words, we're actually more irrational than we'd like to admit. However, being irrational is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, to a large extent, it is how we continue to survive and navigate this increasingly complex world we live in. We don't always have the time to be rational, and therefore must rely on emotions, heuristics, and an often illogical mimicking of others to make the many on-the-spot decisions needed to live meaningful lives. This irrationality makes us susceptible to manipulation, influences, and the peer pressure needed for us to make important social connections with people. As absurd as drinking shots of tequila with strangers we meet on the internet may sound, discovery, growth, and happiness doesn't take place without this absurdity. The question for you and me as marketers, salespeople, and entrepreneurs is, why does this matter? Or at least, how can this understanding of irrationality in decision making help us serve our customers better? The mistake I see many entrepreneurs make is trying to build businesses without a critical appreciation of the drivers that influence buying decisions. In simple terms, you can't successfully sell to people if you don't have a solid handle on why they buy. The purpose of this video is to distill some insights that I have uncovered through in-depth research from fields of behavioral sciences called neuromarketing and neuroselling. So the investments we make in advertising messages and sales processes yield higher and sustainable returns because they are premised on evidence-based neuroscience. Several months ago, I knew very little about starting and running a luxury watch business. I knew a little bit about watches in terms of the different types of movements, the designs and the aesthetics that I liked, and even the various dress occasions different types of watches wore. But I knew very little about the complex supply chains involved in the manufacturing of chronographs. I knew very little about the brand attributes that make luxury timepieces a compelling proposition to invest in. I knew very little about the mechanics of an e-commerce platform, let alone how to build one and integrate all the tools needed to make it an engaging site with a pleasant user experience. So guess what I did? I figured it all out through learning. Entrepreneurs are just lifelong learners who are intentional about converting lessons into commercially viable solutions, brands, or businesses. The difference between exceptional entrepreneurs and everyone else is just that exceptional entrepreneurs are great at learning. In fact, that's the entire game, constantly growing and developing through the things we learn. And if we are to sell and market more effectively to the consumers and shoppers we seek to serve, it has never been more important to learn about the brains of these people, particularly the drivers of decisions and behavior and the strategies we can deploy to best take advantage of these drivers. When you do something crazy, like spend half your salary on sneakers, willingly support a team like Arsenal, or down half a bottle of vodka at the company Christmas party, then you can expect for people to ask you if you've lost your mind. The part of the brain they are asking if you lost is what's known as the ventromedial prefrontal cortex. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex is located in the frontal lobe at the bottom of the cerebral hemisphere and is responsible for three very important functions of the brain: regulating emotions, episodic to semantic memory, and economic valuation, which are the main drivers of purchase decisions. The first thing that is critical to understand about the consumers and shoppers we seek to serve is that they're all emotional beings before they are rational beings. We all feel things before we can logically process information rationally. This is important because marketing messages that don't noticeably make us feel a certain way are largely going to be ignored. We live in a world where any adult can be exposed to between 6,000 to 10,000 selling and marketing adverts on average every single day. First, you need to be seen before you can be shopped. And to be seen, you need to stand out in a crowd of marketing and advertising messages, all fighting for the same attention you are after. If you can grab attention and hold it, then you are onto something special. Attention is the currency with which brand equity is built. Giving attention is also how we maintain and build relationships. The brands we love and want to be associated with the most are the brands we all devote the most attention to. Attention is directly tied to visibility and emotion. It is about being seen, and it is about being seen in a way that stimulates certain feelings. In the 1970s, psychologist Paul Ekman identified 10 basic emotions that he suggested were universally experienced in all human cultures. The emotions are namely happiness, sadness, disgust, fear, surprise, anger, pride, shame, embarrassment, and excitement. If our sales messaging and marketing propositions are to be noticed in this hyper-digitalized world where it is becoming increasingly difficult to fight for attention, we have to share visuals and messaging that is emotionally stimulating. Our brains work by forming connections. We have almost 90 billion neurons, known as nerve cells in the gray matter in our heads, which communicate with each other at junctions called synapses. Our brains create thoughts by sending electrical signals from one nerve cell to another. When electrical signals are transmitted, new connections form. And the stronger these connections we form between brain cells are, the more our brains alter in light of these new connections. The ability of our brain to form connections and alter in shape and size and capacity is what's known as neuroplasticity. We become hardwired to associate certain brands and products with various occurrences in our lives because of the messaging these brands have reinforced through the neuroplasticity of our brains. We rationally cannot explain how an extra long chili cheeseburger meal makes us happy. We just have built connections in our brains through marketing messages that compel us to want to eat a burger when we want to experience a burst of happiness. A large part of neuromarketing is using what is known as mirror neurons to educate the brains of our targeted audiences on how happiness is induced or how fear is reduced. Mirror neurons are brain cells that discharge both when an individual executes a motor act and when he observes another individual performing the same act or a similar motor act. Let's break this down in simpler terms. It's not enough describing your product or services or describing what these products or services do. To get attention and to get the attention that sticks, it's important to show how your products result in the desired emotions or reduces undesirable emotions. This requires deploying massive amounts of empathy. You don't win people's hearts with facts and logical reasoning. You win people's hearts by showing that you understand how they are feeling. You understand how they want to feel, and you paint pictures that make them associate your product with how they want to feel. For this association to be converted into purchase decisions, the association must be committed to the memory of our target audiences, which can be triggered when the relevant occasion arises. The two types of memory responsible for triggering are what is known as our episodic memory and our semantic memories. Episodic memory is a category of long-term memory that involves the recollection of specific events, situations, and experiences. One of my favorite memories is my university graduation day. I remember it vividly like it was yesterday. I wore a black tux and a bow tie and went to campus with my mother, who was just beaming with pride. It's a happy memory that gets triggered every time I see or have to wear a tux and a bow tie. This is why storytelling is so fundamentally crucial and must be at the core of any sales and marketing strategy we build. Stories help contextualize our proposition by immersing our audience into worlds and scenarios that vividly help create and recall important memories in their lives. Your product and service needs to exist in the context of the emotions they create and the events, occasions, and experiences that help conjure up these emotions. When I bought my first tux, I didn't just buy a merino wool, monochrome blazer and matching pants. I bought the feeling of pride I would get as I stood on that graduation stage with all the respectability that tux can buy. The more you can sell the emotions your products and services create through the memorable events, situations, and experiences they are used in, the easier it will become to turn strangers on the internet into loyal brand enthusiasts. Semantic memory involves the capacity to recall words, concepts, or numbers, which is essential for the use and understanding of language. How we say things in terms of the emotive language we choose and the use of figures and symbols often makes a much bigger difference than what we actually say. A lot of entrepreneurs I encounter grossly underestimate just how powerful the right choice of words can be in helping them attract and retain customers. If words can win elections, lead global religious devotion, then you best believe that with the right copy, words can help your customers commit to memory, powerful emotional associations with your products or services. The human brain loves shortcuts. Any opportunity to avoid deep critical thinking, and the average brain will jump to it. If our value propositions are convoluted, difficult to understand, then it becomes almost impossible for our minds to form quick associations that can later translate into buying decisions. The art of the sale is in the simplification of the marketing message. The ventromedial prefrontal cortex doesn't process things step by step in different compartments of the brain. Therefore, our ability to form positive economic valuations of the propositions being presented to us are largely dependent on the emotions conjured up, episodic and semantic memory associations, and the simplicity of the utility versus value equation, and how often this message is repeated to strengthen connections in our brain cells. It's worth mentioning that behavioral economics is largely underpinned by neuroscience. If you assess loss aversion, you can trace it back to the fight or flight mindset hardwired in our DNA from our ancestral history of survival. The better we understand how the brain works, the better we can understand why people buy, and therefore be in a better position to influence what they buy. Many entrepreneurs get stifled by the marketplace because they think that there are quick fixes. The reality is, you can't just run Facebook ads, work with Instagram influencers, and think you can successfully convince strangers on the internet to buy your products. We are complex and irrational beings who need a deeper analysis into the workings and mechanics of our brains in order to develop sales and marketing strategies that stand a better chance of working. So the next time you're on your 8th glass of red wine, bobbing your head to the music playing in the background, and taking selfies of your new Neuroselling watch, consider all the workings of the ventromedial prefrontal cortex that led you here. And think about how you can use neuromarketing and neuroselling to take your business and your brands to new heights. Thank you for watching. Like the sun, keep rising.